Got it.
Snuck up on me.
Yep, you're all set. Up on top.
All right.
Okay, we're live. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just gonna make sure, see if anybody's zooming in. Nobody is zooming in, but I'll
I
leave
don't,
it
Tim.
open.
Good.
Rick should be here. Okay, the next thing is can I get the motion for approval of today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mike and, Fred and Mike. I don't know, I just got a 284 form from Bob this afternoon. We can act on it today, or we can put it off to next month, but all it is how he's spending the money that we budgeted for on the streets that he's doing next year. So if you want to add it today, we can. If not, we can postpone it till next week. But it's a form that's required by the state to do it. So I don't
It
know.
doesn't hurt anything to put it off till next meeting.
Nope. Yep.
Then I would say we do it then.
Yep, okay, so I'll do that, but I'll make a copy for it to everybody, so you have it ahead of time. So, okay, all those in favor of today's agenda,
Aye.
be opposed, moved. Next thing on the board is the approval of the minutes for the November 19th. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion for that. Second.
Timmy and Mike, any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public participation. I will check the Zoom one more time. And we can do it again at the end if someone shows up. Nobody's on there. So we'll move to communications. The only thing that I had in communication is a letter I forwarded everybody on the Van Eaton Cemetery and how impressed they were up there. The Holbein family used up the last spot in the cemetery, so it's the last plot in the town of Owasco that's legally available
Oh,
to put anybody. So we have no other stuff. Okay, the next thing is under new business, bittersweet business. We have a outgoing councilman, Tim Kerstetter. Tim, as customary, we would like to give you a plaque. I didn't think it was appropriate to get you a plaque. I wanted to get you a bust,
Oh,
bronze
yeah.
bust.
On the budget though?
But Tammy was upset because it would take up too much money out of her budget to get her a statue when she retires. Okay,
Yeah.
so,
I'm getting a
but
full-length statue.
yeah, she
Yeah.
wants a full-length statue, so, but, the job, well, there's California, I'm just gonna delay it, I figured it would happen right now. The job of a council person, really, people really, unless you're in the position, you really don't know how hard it is and how much time and energy, how much effort you put into it. You have your emotional ups and downs. It puts an effect on your family. It puts an effect on your shopping ability. I mean, I go to Tops now. I don't go to Wegmans because I get cornered at Wegmans and it takes an hour. And every one of you know that when you go into a public place that people confront you, they want to ask questions. And so there's no easy, thing. You get blamed for things you have no control over, and so, and Timmy, served with the town for 8 years. And during that time, it's a full-time job for a part-time position. And you're constantly thinking about it. And, Timmy did all of this while he was working as a volunteer auxiliary person for the Wasco Fire Department. He did it while he was working with the coroner's office. He already had a full-time job. And then he did, and then he still finds time to go on vacation. So I don't know how he does that, but it's great that he does that. And I wish everybody did more of that. One of the things that you do when you become a town council member is that you want to leave it in a better place than when you got it. You know, we can honestly say that together, the whole board, I think we're in a better place financially than where we were 8 years ago. We're in a better place, capital wise, having, did many capital projects from water to sewer to, Tim's playground and racquetball courts. Yeah,
Bocce ball.
bocce ball,
Pickleball.
all of those, but all of those, make Owasco a better community, and it's part of your legacy, and you should be very, very proud of that. Things that we're gonna miss, the technical part that you provided with security, with keeping us clean, and the mess behind you probably is driving you nuts right now. But it is what it is. We cleaned out the closet to make room for other spots,
stuff.
and so our historian got a hold of that. She goes, "You can't throw that away. That's history." So what we're gonna do with it, So those are some of the things that we did, and even just the stuff with the climate action control, with the smart communities, with Tree City USA, all of those things besides the capital projects, the street lighting, all those things we did over the past 8 years. So with that in mind, Timmy, thank you for the 8 years. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for serving not only the town and all its residents. We really appreciate everything that you did, and
Thank you.
congratulations.
Oh, very good, very
I gotta get collar here.
Or I guess we could even get one after, I guess.
Oh, I think the mask, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go now. Yeah, and Tim, please take your plaque in front, your name tag, and everybody's invited. We suspect we're gonna have a really brief meeting. Andy Lay is coming in a few minutes to talk about the one project, water easement project, but after that, I think it's a quick meeting, so I never know. So, Tim, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, next new business, many of you know, December 29th is my last day at the college. In order for me to retire from the college, I have to resign from this position for at least a day. And what I'm planning on doing is probably at the end of next week, I will submit my resignation from the town of Owasco. And I don't anticipate much happening between now and the end of the year. But we have Tony as a deputy and backup until the end of the year. Because of the election, I get reappointed January 1st. But I want to make sure that because I was in 2 retirement systems, a local and a state teacher's retirement, I can transfer my earnings from the local to the teachers and have that included. So I will be stepping down at the end of probably next week. So one of the things on tonight's responsibilities is to designate new signatories on the bank accounts. Tim was on there, Tony's on there, and I was on there. So Tim and I will actually come off. I'm proposing right now, because of the closeness, is to have Tony and Fred on there as signatories in case they need to sign something between now and the end of the year. And we'll go, and then come January 1st, we'll have to do another resolution to appoint, if you want me back, well, legally I have to be, because I'm chief financial officer, you have to be on there. So I'll go back on as I take the oath of office.
If we reappoint you.
Well, in January, you don't have to.
Yeah.
It's automatic. It's automatic. I just got to sign the oath.
You already thought that far ahead.
Yeah. That's why I'm waiting at the end of the year. That's why I didn't do it in August. But I just want to make everybody aware that's the policy, what I'm going to be doing. The next thing was an amended COVID town policy. I did send emails out, and I'm working with Bob Shenick and King. And one of the things that we need to do is establish a policy. So I'm copying and imitating what other people have done, picking and choosing what will work for the town of Owasco. And I made several phone calls already to Boncheck and Keene and had discussions with their expert. And one of the things that, that we need to address is we have several people in the town come down with COVID. We have several people who refuse to get vaccinated. We have people, so how do we treat vaccinated people and unvaccinated people? Do we want them to get tested or don't we want them to get tested? But that will be a board decision. So what my plan is in the next week or two, is to get a written statement or some ideas, put it together, have you guys look at it. And then we will address that. If we have to call a special meeting, we will, or we have a reorganizational meeting in January. Instead of waiting to the second Thursday of January, we can have a meeting the first Thursday of January, and we can do all that stuff at that time. Any questions on the amended COVID? So we already have a policy, but we need to address certain issues that other people are concerned about, but it's a board decision on how we go forward with that. All right, we'll go to old business. Andy, I don't see Andy walk in yet, so we'll skip Andy on old business. We'll come back to that. One of the things that on old business that we've been working on for several years now is we have a climate smart community designation, and then we have a clean energy committee and communities. I'm sorry, climate smart communities and clean energy communities. They're two separate programs through NYSERDA, and we already received money. For example, I was out there today replacing the head in the charging station because it wasn't communicating with the satellite for people to use it. So, and that's who called just a few minutes ago. I had some troubleshooting with that. We're getting points, and the reason why we're doing it, we'll be the first town, village, or city within Cuyahoga County to get a bronze designation for climate smart communities. It's based on a point system, achieving 3,000 points, and we've been going through all these different processes. As you see, we got recycling bins over there. We've got, we did the street lighting. We did training for the code enforcement officer. We put LED lighting in all the buildings, both here and the highway. We've been doing a lot of stuff over the years, but we are definitely working on that certification. And we have a committee that has been working very hard, and we have a meeting we had one last month. We have a meeting next week to come up with initiatives and come up with ideas on how to go forward and what we're going to do. So we will meet this obligation. We will exceed the bronze designation to go to silver within the year, hopefully. So we'll be the first one to get bronze and probably the only one to get bronze. And then we're shooting for silver designation on that. What that does for us is provides us with a higher ranking on anything we go to for grants. We'll get a higher ranking and get extra points for that. We will get discounts on a lot of other things from DEC. So overall, and there's I forgot to mention a $20,000 grant. If we achieve that, we'll be getting money toward special projects like, whatever we want to do. So, and climate, reducing greenhouse gases and that kind of stuff. So we can get grant money when we apply, once we get that designation. So any questions on that?
Only silver? I mean,
I don't have gold yet,
Still
No,
working on it.
yeah,
We'll work towards that.
yeah. Yeah, well, I always say if you're not first, you're last. So we cannot vote on the next resolution because Andy's not here yet, but he'll be here shortly. So we'll come back to that. The next thing is we are notified by the County Board of Assessment Review that Nancy Taylor's term is up. We need to submit this by the end of the year. And Nancy Taylor has been the chair of the Assessment Review Board for the last, since the last appraisal they did, not what do you call it, Rick? What's the name of that term?
Evaluation.
Reval. That's the reval in 1992, I think it was, or 02. I can't remember what year it was. But I think it was 02, they did the reval. And that's when everybody who was on the board got voted out, because they did the reval. So,
We got that a couple of years, right?
that's not for a couple of years. Yeah. So I got to time it right. So, but that's the reality, looking at the prices of what things have been selling for lately, we are well, for years, we've been well overdue for a reval. Doesn't mean your taxes will go up, just means everybody's, the people who aren't paying their fair share will be paying their fair share. But when Fleming did it, who hadn't done it in 45 years, they, I think 80% of the people stayed the same, 10% went up, 10% of people went down.
Balances out.
So it really isn't a major factor. But, so can I get a motion to reappoint Nancy Taylor?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Just checking my thing one more time. Nobody signed in. The next resolution is to approve Tony and Fred to sign on the bank accounts. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next thing is to appoint Jennifer Wojner and Amy Sardinsky and reaffirm Steve Smith as a screw crossing guard at a rate of $25 per shift. Can I get a motion for discussion?
Move.
Second. Good.
That's 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, per shift. So what we are doing, just so everybody's aware, we talked about this last month, is that we are paying, historically, we had 3 people up there. We were paying $27.50 per day. That's for 2 shifts, like an hour 15 in the morning, hour 15 in the afternoon. We lost several people due to many reasons. So we end up only going to 1 crossing guard. That was Steve Smith. Nope, it's public knowledge. An individual who was working as a crossing guard came down with COVID. We had nobody. So we've been putting some of our workers up there. We called the sheriff's department when I got notified on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock that an individual who was doing crossing guard work was in the hospital with COVID. We had to scramble. Sheriff's department put a road patrol deputy out there in the morning, gave us time to get someone from the town to get up there in the afternoon. And for the last 2 weeks, we've been covering that shift. There has been multiple requests for more people there, going back to 3. At $27.50 per day, it's not even minimum wage. We decided to try to match what the city's paying. So the city is paying approximately $47.50. So what we're going to do is pay $50 a day, whether so it's $25 a shift, morning or afternoon. We're going to have, and we budgeted $16,500. We're going to put 2 people in there, one at front of the school, one up top of Bristol, and it's the busiest intersections. And we're going to have 2 people, and if we had 2 people there every day at $50 a day, it'll be about $15,000 for the year, which is about $1,500 under the budgeted amount. So we're going to hire a 3rd person to be a substitute. We went through civil service. We posted on the civil service website. The civil service collected 5 applications. Civil service commissioners approved the 5 people. Well, I talked to the different people based on their qualifications. I made offers to these 2 people. One, Jennifer would be the full-time morning night, and Amy would be the part-time person filling in. So, and so that's the history, that's the rationale. Any discussion?
We're lucky. We got somebody.
Yeah,
And we wouldn't have got anybody if we didn't make that change.
no.
We're lucky.
Yeah, so Amy already, going through background checks, Amy already, her husband is a retired police officer. She's already been through the background check already with she's a substitute for the Auburn Crossing Guard, so she's willing to do both. And so we just have to get, I got a phone call into, they're not gonna start until after I check the references and check the background check, and they probably hopefully can come in here. I got them scheduled to come in and fill out our paperwork on Monday morning after 9 o'clock. So I have all day tomorrow. I have today and tomorrow to get the stuff back, and hopefully everything will be in place before they start. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next thing would be to approve the recommended budget modifications by ourselves.
I'll make a motion for that. Second.
Is there any questions on the budget modifications? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And one of the things that carries, one of the things I wanted to point out too, we are well under our anticipated expenditures for the year. We are without the third quarter revenue check for sales tax revenue. We are at 106% for the year that we budgeted. So we're going to end up about 130%, 30% more than what we budgeted for. So our revenues are going to see we are probably between our revenues and our expenditures, we anticipate probably somewhere around $400,000 more that we can put back into our fund balance at the end of the year. So what we did during the budget season was to anticipate more capital projects. We're putting into a reserve fund to save up and pay cash for different equipments going forward in the future. So, okay. Next thing is do we vote on it?
We didn't vote on
Okay,
that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great. Okay, next thing is the audit and payment and claims. Can I get a motion for discussion?
Move.
Your second
Second.
discussion,
I was holding up silence.
because Xylem, we had because we went on in sewer district 3, when we negotiated the original contract, we had a 5-year warranty on the parts. Normally it was only a 3-year, but we got 2 years extra. So when we have a pump that goes down and we replace it, we apply for credit. We have not got credit. They have applied the credit to our account, so we're holding back payments until we get our credit. So we're just playing, give us our credit, and before we give you your money that we owe you. And so that's why we're holding it up.
Makes sense.
So we've been, and the same thing, but we've been playing around with Verizon. Verizon owes us like $1,100 in credit, because when we originally signed the contract, we're tax exempt. They've been charging us tax. About 2 months ago, they stopped charging us tax. We've been ourselves has been hounding them every month and sending documentation to Rick, to state comptrollers, to FCC, you name it. We've been sending it to their attorneys, our attorneys. So we've been trying to get the credit back. At least they stopped charging us tax, but we have $1,100, so we're trying to get that back as well.
I think it's Spectrum on that.
The Spectrum, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. That's a potato. Yeah, so, okay.
That's about it.
Okay, any other questions on audit and payments and claims?
No.
No,
Perfect timing.
every time. Okay, next on the agenda is,
vote.
We didn't vote.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, Andy, welcome.
You're in the hot seat.
You're on the hot seat. You're up. Yeah, what, you want men to get some water or anything like that?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you very much. Good
Okay.
afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about the application by, is it Mr. Coppola? Is that how it's pronounced? Mr. Coppola's proposal to the board to modify an easement currently crossing his land that contains a water line, a main trunk line for the town that runs through there on its way to distribution to service many households. His proposal is basically to erect a walkway connecting his house with the garage nearby. It would sort of laterally extend across that easement, the full length of the easement. And this walkway, as I understand it, based on the plans, would be constructed in such a way to make it removable. By that, I mean, there'll be eye hooks, or eye bolts mounted at 4 points in the roof of the structure that will allow chains to be affixed and allow it to be picked up and actually craned over and moved out of the way in the event the town had to access its easement and had to access the water line for maintenance, repair, whatever. So Mr. Coppola is proposing that the easement be amended because the easement as itself exists right now states quite clearly that no structures may be placed on that easement. No vegetation, no permanent trees, no structures of any kind. So it would need an easement amendment to be able to allow him to place this structure, albeit removable, it's still a structure, to be able to cross that easement and connect his house with his garage through, I guess it would be like a walkway, like a breezeway type of situation. So the question was put to me is, what do you recommend? What should we do here? First of all, I want to make it clear that this board can modify the easement. You have the lawful authority to do so. Your predecessor board created the easement some time ago when the water line was first going in. So you have the ability to modify that easement. But the question is, should you modify the easement? And when I looked at this, I tried to take a long-term approach with this, as I think is recommended with anytime you're talking about easements. Because easements of this type generally last a long time. They will generally outlast any one of us in this room. We'll all be gone long, and this easement will still be around long after we're gone. So you need to approach the easement with that long-term viewpoint of whatever changes you make now to that easement could in fact bind your successor boards down the way. And when you look at it that way, you look at it, okay, what are the long-term implications if we make a change to the easement? And the closer I looked at it, the more I got into, well, it's painted here as, you know, if the structure is brand new, if everything works according to plan, it's functional. The plan could work. If the town had to access the easement and get into the water line for something, let's say a break or some type of emergency activity, ideally they would notify the landowner. The landowner would say, sure, come on over. The town would have equipment at the ready to be able to get in there and lift up that. By this time, it's a 20-foot long section we're talking about, this walkway. It's 20 feet in length. And it's built so it's obviously a person can walk through without a problem. So it's going to be tall enough to allow that to happen. So when you get down to it, it's a substantial structure. It's not just a little short 6-foot piece we're talking about. It's 20-foot wide, 20-foot long piece. So in an ideal world, whatever equipment is needed for that is can arrive on the spot timely. They hook on without a problem. They pick up the structure, move it over, do what they need to do, and then put it back. No harm, no foul. Everything works, right? Well, as a lawyer, I sort of have to, I owe an obligation to my clients. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. I have to assume that things aren't always going to go as smoothly. That maybe it's an emergency situation. The town needs to get in there quickly. It's the middle of winter, which it usually is when these things happen, as Mr. Bruno can attest. It's snowing, it's sleeting, it's lousy weather. You can't just go in with a backhoe, I think, to pick up that structure. I'll defer to Mr. Vitale in that regard, but the way it seems it's laid out to me is you need a small crane. You need something that can get over it and pick it up and move it over without much trouble. A backhoe really isn't geared for that. You can't really, it doesn't, usually they don't have the length to get in there and get it done. So that means you have to have a crane. Well, the town doesn't have a crane on standby that they can easily use. So they'd have to make arrangements with somebody to get a crane. How long will that take? In the middle of a winter storm? Who knows? And then there's the fact of somebody's got to actually climb on and attach a chain to those eye bolts to chain it to the crane. Somebody's got to clamber up there and do it. Who's that going to be? And what happens if they slip on the slippery roof and fall and get injured? Assuming they get up there and tie it on, when you're lifting up the structure, is the structure going to hold and be intact? Now, we're not talking about day one when it's built. We're talking 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. The structure ages. Maybe it's maintained properly, maybe not. But you take a risk whenever you latch onto those bolts. You lift it up, maybe it'll come out okay, maybe it won't. When it comes out, will it come out in one piece? When it comes out, will there be any damage to the attaching points on either side of the house and the garage that the thing attaches to? Then once you try to put it back into place, will it go in smoothly into place? There's all these things that I have to think about when saying, is this a good idea or not? What can go wrong? What's the likelihood that it could go wrong? And what would it mean to the town if it did go wrong? If it's bad weather, you can't get a crane in there to move the thing as quickly as you want, there's a delay. What does that delay mean in terms of accessing that line? It's just something that I have to consider, and I hope that I'm sure you already considered that as well. Again, against the backdrop of permanence, this easement is there permanently. This structure may be there a long, long time. I'm not worried about Mr. Coppola's representations to the board as much as a successor. Mr. Coppola is willing to say, sure, I'll pay for the structure to be moved over and moved back. I'll reimburse you for that. I'll reimburse the town for all the expenses involved. I'll let the town out anytime they need to access the easement. Well, okay, but what about his successor? The successor owner of the property, because there will be one someday. Will that successor be so amenable to let the town out easily? To let the town disturb that structure? Or will he want some type of other accommodations made? Will they say, no, you can't cross my property here. You have to come over here, and you can't use that big machinery because I'm not, it's too heavy, etc. Will we have that kind of problem with a successor? Hopefully not. But if we do, that's something that the town officials at the time will be forced to handle because of a decision made by this board. So I want you to keep that in mind, is that your decisions now have very long-term implications down the road for the town. So in my email, which I believe you all received a copy of, I tried to just summarize some of these things. Again, thinking worst case scenario, the various things that might go wrong with it. Recognizing that it is a major trunk line. If this were a 1-inch water line that serviced a half a dozen homes, probably have a little different discussion. But this is a trunk line that services a great many homes. And it's important. It was important enough to the town when they put in the easement to put in that explicit language that nothing can be constructed over it. Because they knew that if they have to get in there and access it, they don't want to have to waste time removing trees or buildings or breezeways or anything else. They want to get in there now. So the other sort of part of this, the other calculus in this, is when you're considering an easement like this is basically a bargain. It's a deal between two parties. One of them is benefited, one of them is burdened. In this case, the original landowner there, Mr. Coppola's predecessor, was willing to accept a burden, that is the easement across his land that restricted what he could do on it, in exchange for some type of compensation. Okay, he made the deal. Now Mr. Coppola is before this board seeking to amend the deal, to change the terms of the deal, to lessen to actually sort of impose a burden on the town of having to worry about what to do with this structure that's now across their easement. How do we get equipment in? How do we get equipment? How do we get equipment in, get it out of there safely, and then get it put back? All the while worrying about the underlying issue, which is getting to the trunk line. So you've got a burden that's being lessened on the part of the landowner. But the town really is not seeing any benefit in that regard. The original benefit the town had was to be able to extend the water line across that property in exchange for the payment to the landowner. So the town bargained and negotiated for a permanent right of access across that property, permanent. Now this is being suggested to be altered, but the town really isn't seeing a benefit in this. In fact, you're seeing a burden because now you have to worry about a structure on top of your easement. So there's no real mention anywhere in here of some type of benefit to the town. Whether it's monetary or something else, I don't know, but I haven't seen any mention of it. And I think that is something else that you have to take into account when you're talking about amending a deal that was made before most of you were, I think, were on this board, before any of you were on this board, perhaps. So keeping that in mind and keeping in mind what could go wrong, my recommendation to the board was not to entertain that. One other thing on the benefit burden is Mr. Coppola's benefit in this stands to be substantial. Because by putting that breezeway connecting the house and the garage is now able to be used as a residence, which it can't be now under our current code. And which actually the issue came up before the ZBA not too long ago with another person living just a little bit further down the shoreline. Wanted to come in and convert their garage to a partial residence and was denied by the board. They couldn't do so. By physically connecting the house with the garage through this breezeway, albeit temporary or what, that technically makes the garage able to be used as a residence, which considerably increases the value of the Coppola property. Again, he's seeing a significant value, an increase in value in his property. The town is seeing a burden placed on it in terms of having to worry about a structure across its easement. So when you take that into account, in summary, I couldn't see compelling reasons why the board would want to go back and amend its permanent easement to afford this type of benefit to someone, to an individual landowner, with no discernible benefit to the town in exchange. And obviously thinking long-term about the precedent you might be setting here with other persons who live anywhere along a town water line or sewer line who are burdened in the same way, but will be coming before you again and saying, well, I want to put this over. I want to put this gazebo over here. I'm going to put bolts in it so you can pick up the gazebo and move it over here if you have to get to the easement. You're setting a precedent here, I think, that you might not want to set. So those were my sort of thoughts on it that I compressed into the email that I sent, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Again, it's only my recommendation, but you asked, and so I provided.
Let's
Thank you.
let's do this to expedite this. There is a motion on the agenda, and we can have discussion after the motion, then we can vote on that resolution. The resolution is glasses here again, is resolution 21-175 to approve and authorize the supervisor to sign any agreement with Mr. Coppola the motion is to approve it. So the recommendation. So could I get a motion for discussion? Right,
Also second.
Timmy, we'll give Timmy the credit.
Okay, so who was it? Who was
Me.
it?
Fred.
Fred and
Timmy.
Timmy, okay.
All right, now we'll have discussion. So Fred, you want to go first?
We talked about this a little bit last month and maybe the month before, and my opinion hasn't changed. Actually, Mr. Leah has solidified my feelings on this, because the one thing that, and maybe it's just not not thinking as long-term as I should, but the thing that I didn't consider previously was the condition of the structure 20 years from now. And that is a very important thing to consider, that this thing may not be able to be moved or easily moved because of the structure degrading or not being in the same condition as it is newly constructed. Now, this project is gorgeous. There is no question about it. I think it's a great, I think it would be a great thing in the community. I think it's great for the Coppola family. I think that they've done an outstanding job of trying to sell it to us. But the reality is that our job is to do what's best for the town, and what's best for the town is for us to keep things as they are. What the Coppolas lose is the ability to put that living space over the garage. They could complete the project in every other fashion that they wanted to, and I think that it's unfortunate for them that they're in this situation, but I couldn't. I think that Mr. Leah makes a lot of very solid points that we need to consider.
Yeah, I agree. And these easements are put in there for a purpose, and our sole purpose of reversing this easement would be detrimental to a water line that was protected by the easement.
I'm agreeing with these guys, but I want to ask Andy something. Andy, the successor isn't bound by Mr. Coppola's agreement with us?
I'm sorry, say
The
again.
successor, will he be bound by Mr. Coppola's agreement with us?
Technically, the successor is bound, but if you amend the easement
Right.
with Mr. Coppola's agreement, yes, that gets recorded and the successors are bound by that. But the problem comes is if they don't maybe necessarily refuse to comply, but they're slow to comply, or they simply say, I don't believe the easement says that. My attorney doesn't believe the easement says that. I think it means something else. And I think you need to pay me for any expenses I incur in terms of moving it. Or I think we can draft it all sorts of different ways to try to tie their hands. But if they dispute it, it's going to end up in court.
So we don't have the time, if we have a major repair, we don't have the time to do the
Right.
major
Or you
repair.
have to invoke emergency. I have to go find a judge somewhere, wake a judge up in the middle of the night and try to get an emergency injunction that will order the landowner, successor, whoever it is, to be able to afford you access to get to the line.
So it behooves us to leave things alone.
I've always been concerned about setting a precedent. This project is really, as Fred described, wonderful, but who knows what the next one's gonna be?
Right.
And then how do you refuse if you've already given permission for something that's out of the ordinary? So, I mean, and the other factor is, why pay the lawyer if you're not gonna listen to him?
Is that a motion to not pay the lawyer? Second.
Plenty of clients pay me, don't listen.
Right.
Why pay? I mean, it's like going to the doctor, you're not gonna listen to the doctor, stay home.
Okay, I can spell chocolate, so it's ironic that we're here, because yesterday, an old friend of mine came into the building, Dave Arthur, and he went through the same situation with his house, not an easement, but being attached. If he had just attached the house to the garage, he would have had no problem. But he's going to put an office space. An office space is not designated as a living space, so he can still put his office above his garage if he chooses to do so. But he just wanted the walkway to make it easier for he and his wife to go back and forth in the wintertime, and have cover. And as someone mentioned to me one time, that's what umbrellas are for. So, but that's it. So,
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
yeah, any other discussion before we vote? Okay,
Roll call?
I'll do a roll call.
Councilman Cornelius,
No.
Councilman Gucciardi,
No,
Councilman Kerstetter,
No,
Councilman Vitale,
No.
Supervisor Wagner.
No. Okay, Andy, thank you. We're going to have cake if you'd like to stay. It's Tim's last board meeting, so you're welcome to stay. Yeah, and then I don't have anything for executive session. Does anybody else have anything for executive session?
Contract negotiations.
We don't have anything.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they haven't, I
Nothing
haven't,
nothing to report on.
Have
So
not
I
looked
had,
back.
just in case someone had, I'm not part of it, so I don't know
Yeah.
if there was anything that you guys wanted to share.
nope,
With nothing to share,
motion adjourned.
motion to
second.
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, go cut the cake. All those in favor of,
All right.
Aye.
all right, thank you. Okay. Oh, forgot to mention, Nate,